Welcome to my little corner of the internet, where we celebrate creativity and growth. It's a pleasure to have you join us as we uncover the secrets of John Thwaites, Australian politician. Johnstone William John Thwaites is an Australian former politician and served as Deputy Premier of the state of Victoria from 1999 to 2007. In the next segment, we'll be exploring early life and education and its implications for our subject matter. Thwaites was born in Oxford, England, and came to Australia as a child with his family. He was educated at Melbourne Grammar School and Monash University, Melbourne, where he graduated in science and law. He practiced as a barrister before entering politics. He was a ministerial advisor to Labour Party state government ministers Jim Kennan and Andrew McCutcheon before being elected to the Victorian Legislative Assembly for the seat of Albert Park. Brace yourself for an in-depth analysis as we navigate through local council and mayor and its far-reaching implications. Thwaites was elected to the South Melbourne City Council in 1985 and served until 1993 and was mayor in. As we transition, let's shed light on state parliament and its relevance to our ongoing exploration. Thwaites entered parliament at the 1992 election as member for the inner city seat of Albert Park. Labour, having been in office for 10 years, suffered a landslide defeat at the hands of the Liberal Party under Jeff Kennett. In the last 3 years of its term, Labour, under Joan Kirner, had presided over a sharp recession and a series of financial disasters, including the forced sale of the State Bank of Victoria and the collapse of Pyramid Building Society. Most commentators expected Labour to be in opposition for many years. In the greatly reduced Labour caucus, Thwaites gained rapid promotion. He became Shadow Minister for Health in January 1994, Shadow Minister for Health and Community Services in April 1996, and Deputy Leader of the Opposition in December 1996. Thwaites belonged to neither of the dominant factions of the Victorian Labour Party, the right-wing Labour Unity or the left-wing Socialist Left, and was an acceptable compromise candidate as deputy to the then opposition leader, John Brumby. Labour was again heavily defeated at the 1996 election, and it became apparent that the party could not recover under Brumby's leadership. Thwaites had been a loyal deputy to Brumby, although in March 1999 he supported moves to have Brumby resign. Thwaites could not become leader himself because he had a small factional base, but instead supported Steve Bracks for the leadership. As Shadow Minister for Health, Thwaites campaigned against the Kennett government's cuts to health and the privatisation of ambulance services. He used Freedom of Information documents to highlight long delays in hospital emergency departments and health budget cuts. Austin in patient crisis, says Labour, The Age, 3 October 1996. Thwaites also highlighted concerns about privatisation of ambulance dispatching to a private company, Intergraph, which the Auditor General found at best involved serious mismanagement or, at worst, constituted corrupt activity. State backs Intergraph reports bid, The Age, 3 September 1999. The Intergraph affair and concerns about hospital privatisation and ambulance services were major issues in the 1999 state election. Let's now shift our focus to Deputy Leader and explore the ways in which it shapes our perspective. In September 1999, Bracks polled surprisingly well in the election, and 3 rural independent members gave Labour the opportunity to govern as a minority government. As Deputy Leader, Thwaites became Deputy Premier and was given the senior health portfolio, with a mandate to increase funding to the public health system which had been the subject of cutbacks under the Liberal government. He was also Minister for Planning from 1999 to February 2002. Shortly after taking office, Thwaites cancelled the proposed privatisation of the Austin Hospital and announced plans for the government to rebuild the hospital with public funds. Labour to cancel Austin Hospital privatisation, The Age, 28 October 1999. Can the new government fix health? The Age, 20 November 1999. Like all state health ministers, He had only limited success in reducing waiting lists at public hospitals, but did succeed in restoring the numbers of nurses. One of Thwaites' first actions as health minister was to ban smoking in restaurants. He later introduced legislation to ban smoking in gaming venues. As planning minister, Thwaites put controls on high-rise development around Port Phillip Bay and introduced a residential planning code, RES-code, to preserve neighbourhood character in planning decisions. He also initiated Melbourne 2030, a 30-year strategy plan for Melbourne. After the November 2002 state election, at which Labour was returned with a record majority, Thwaites was appointed Minister for Environment, Water and Victorian Communities. Thwaites' term as Minister for Water coincided with the millennium drought in southeast Australia that put significant pressure on urban and rural water supplies. Premier Steve Bracks and Thwaites led a major water-saving campaign commencing in 2003 that by 2006 had reduced water use per head by 22% compared to the ERS. Thwaites introduced major reforms to water policy and legislation in Victoria, including giving the environment a statutory right to water, reforming irrigation water rights and establishing sustainable water planning strategies. He also oversaw programs to return environmental flows to the Murray, Snowy, and Thomson rivers. In 2007, after Victoria had experienced its worst year of drought and the lowest stream flows in the state's history, Premier Steve Bracks and Thwaites announced the Our Water, Our Future plan, which included a new desalination plant at Wonhaggi, modernising Victoria's irrigation system to save water lost through inefficiencies, expanding a water grid across Victoria and increase recycling and water conservation. As Minister for Environment, Thwaites introduced measures to lower greenhouse emissions and water consumption. Victoria was the first state to introduce 5-star energy efficiency requirements for new homes together with incentives for rainwater tanks and solar hot water. Thwaites also oversaw a major expansion of Victoria's national park system, including creation of the Great Otway National Park, and removed cattle grazing from the Alpine National Park. In the second term of the Bracks government, Thwaites led the development of the government's social justice strategy, A Fairer Victoria, working with other social policy ministers. The strategy committed $788 million in the 2005 state budget and $818 million in the 2006 budget to tackle disadvantage across a range of areas including early childhood development, mental health, disability, and community development. It was described by the head of the Brotherhood of Street Lawrence as an unprecedented effort to make Victoria a better place for those who are disadvantaged and vulnerable. Thwaites was re-elected at Victorian elections 2006 with a comfortable but slightly reduced majority. While there was some speculation he might be dumped as Deputy Premier, Premier Bracks has supported him continuing in this role. In the cabinet reshuffle after the election he became Minister for Climate Change but lost the portfolio of Victorian communities. In June 2007, amid rumours of Bracks resigning as Premier, there was a series of leaks from inside government about Mr. Thwaites and his family being given free accommodation, lift passes, food and drink at ski resorts over the last 5 years without declaring it. The family stayed at government-owned apartments at the invitation of the management boards, which he had appointed. Documents obtained under Freedom of Information laws show Thwaites made 17 taxpayer-funded visits to Victoria's snowfields and national parks between 2003 and 2007. He had 8 stays at Tidal River on Wilson's Promontory, 5 trips to Mount Hotham and 2 each to Mount Buller and Falls Creek in the 4 years he was Environment Minister. Expenses for the trips, which each required at least one night's accommodation, totaled more than $17,500. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore resignation from a different angle. When Premier Steve Bracks announced his surprise resignation on 27 July 2007, only hours later Thwaites announced he too would resign. He said he had been deputy leader of the Parliamentary Labour Party in Victoria for 10 years and it was now time to give someone else a go and bring in some new blood. He officially resigned on 30 July 2007 and from Parliament on 6 August 2007. Let's now turn our gaze towards after politics and explore the fascinating connections it has to offer. After leaving politics, Thwaites became a professor at Monash University and chair of Monash Sustainable Development Institute and ClimateWorks Australia. He has also been appointed to a number of senior board positions, including President, Australian Centre for the Moving Image ACMI, Chair Australian Building Codes Board, Chair the Climate Group, Chair Peter Cullen Trust, and Director of Green Building Council of Australia and Fair Trade Australia New Zealand. He was also a consultant to Maddox solicitors with specialty areas of practice in environment, water and climate change between 2008 and 2015. In 2011, Thwaites was appointed as chair of the Australian Building Codes Board, the body responsible for developing and managing Australia's building regulations. In 2012, he was appointed as chair of the National Sustainability Council that provides independent advice to the Australian government on sustainability issues and produces independent reports on sustainability indicators and trends. Thwaites is currently the chair of Melbourne Water, which manages Melbourne's water, sewerage, drainage and waterway health, and sits on a number of water advisory bodies. Thwaites has been appointed to a number of reviews and advisory bodies for the federal and state governments. In 2016, the Victorian government appointed him with Terry Mulder and Patricia Faulkner to conduct an independent review of retail electricity and gas markets. The review recommended major reforms to energy pricing for households and small business, including a no-frills electricity price to be regulated by the Essential Services Commission, the end of misleading marketing, and requiring retailers to fix offer prices for 12 months. The Victorian government has now implemented most of these reforms. In 2017, amid public concern about flammable cladding on buildings, Thwaites was appointed with former Victorian Premier Ted Baillieu to co-chair the Victorian Cladding Task Force to oversee the investigation and audit of buildings with dangerous cladding. Following recommendations of the Cladding Task Force, the Victorian government conducted a statewide audit of multi-storey buildings, boosted enforcement of building regulations, and announced a $600 million plan to remove dangerous cladding from buildings. Since leaving politics, Thwaites has worked with governments, business and academics to promote sustainable development and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In 2012, he was appointed by the Australian government as chair of the National Sustainability Council to provide independent advice to the government on sustainability issues. The council produced the Sustainable Australia Report 2013. He currently chairs the National Sustainable Development Council, which in 2018 produced the Transforming Australia SDG Progress Report on Australia's progress in implementing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. He is currently co-chair of the Leadership Council of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network SDS and launched by the Secretary-General of the United Nations to mobilize universities in support of the S. In July 2020, Thwaites was appointed to the Lancet COVID-19 Commission, which aims to speed up global and equitable solutions to the pandemic. Turning our focus to recognition and awards, let's explore its key elements. Thwaites was appointed member of the Order of Australia for significant service to the environment and to the people and Parliament of Victoria in the 2021 Australia Day Honours. I'm here to provide you with the best information, so let me know what else you'd like to learn about.